the body follows the mind. And what we're truly doing is we're healing the mind. The body, under the right conditions, meaning the right brain waves and emotional state, will automatically heal.
Welcome to the Spirits Beside Us podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lippincott. I'm an ex-Wall Street analyst turned international medium, spiritual teacher, and best-selling author. Each week we'll dive into the fascinating and uplifting arena of the non-physical world to help you deepen your understanding and spiritual connection to the unseen realm. We'll also share a behind-the-scenes look with others who've done the same and speak with experts in the field about their experiences. Pull up a seat and let's dive into these perspective-changing conversations. Well, welcome everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Spirits Beside Us. I'm so happy that you decided to join us today. And today we've got another special guest. Her name is Sophia Torrini, and she's a certified EFT practitioner as well as a neurochange solutions trainer. That's a tongue twister. Who specializes in helping individuals release their emotional blocks, calm their mind, as well as create lasting positive change. And there's a lot of energy healing that goes on here. There's a lot of spiritual connection that helps them to move beyond where they happen to be in order to heal. So with that, Sophia, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor to being on your show. And I'm happy to give the little information that I've learned from my own personal experience.
Yeah, that's that. I find that sometimes the best experience is a personal experience because you've gone through it, and then you can say, okay, now I've gone through it. Now I know how to talk about it. And now I know how to share it, because you may read it in a book, but you haven't gone through it, and it's very different. What you read in a book and what you've actually experienced yourself, two different things completely.
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
So, I mean, the one thing I love, and I've heard this so many times, and I'm sure other people who are listening in have heard this so often, an EFT practice. First off, what is EFT? What is an EFT practice, and how does it work?
So let's start with what clinical EFT. So clinical EFT is evidence-based EFT versus other EFT that's out there. And what is EFT? It's emotional freedom techniques. And the assumption is, or the presupposition is, that blocked energy in the body, which are emotions not having been processed, cause disease. In other words, all disease is a lowering of frequency. And EFT is a combination of cognitive psychotherapy. So you're addressing the personality, because we're part personality, and then we're spirit, right? And then by tapping on the acupuncture point, so doing acupuncture now without needles, you're moving the energy that wasn't processed. And I'd like to spend a little time, because most people don't address what an emotion is and what a feeling is. So emotions are chemical production from the limbic brain that has information for us, right? So something happens or you have a thought, it's going to produce chemistry. The neurotransmitters are going to get activated, neuropeptides and hormones. And that's what the limbic brain does to give you information. And if it's not processed and we have disconnected from the body, that gets stored in the body. And over a period of time, that congestion or that information causes a blockage or an overload, and the cells now are not communicating properly well. Now let's address what a feeling is. So I'll give you an example. It's 4 a.m. in the morning and I hear something trying to open my door. Okay, so obviously I'm getting the proper signal to wake up and go and check. And now I go and check, and it's my cat trying to come in. And I say, oh my goodness, I'm safe. I released it just like an animal does. They shake. I released it. We don't shake, but that's okay. And then I go to bed. But now let's assume I'm an angry personality. And now I know it's the cat. oh my goodness, I can't believe this darn cat did it. And she woke me up in the middle of the night. I should put her aside. All this addition, all this wording that continues, and the anger that goes on top of it is going to create a feeling.
Hmm.
So a feeling is our personal attribute of what's happening, though the emotions are standard on all of us. There's certain emotions that happen to all of us and they're automatic. Our job is to process and feel our emotions. And if we can't do it at the very moment, to go later and reflect it. And why has trauma become such a big thing? So let's say you're a child and you see something violent happening. Obviously, you're 6 years old. You're not going to speak up because you might be next, right? So in this case, it's to your best interest not to process that emotion. But later, when you grow up, somehow we need to process it. And what happens is all these traumatic memories have been created because they were protecting us at the time by not speaking up. But we did not go and look at them to reprocess them and timestamp these memories. So now we get triggered with almost every little thing, and now we create beliefs on that, and the whole story goes on. I'm sure you heard what happens afterwards.
Right. So that's really where the traumas become from, like childhood issues, and then we have to deal as adults. We have to deal with the childhood issues that we had way back when that we never got a chance to cope with or deal with or work
Correct.
out. Okay.
And traumatic memories get stored in a different place of the brain. They get stored as high definition in the hippocampus, and they're not time stamped properly. So let's imagine this was a movie, right? You were trying to create a movie, but the child has experienced five emotions at the same time, and the bodies and the mind is at overload. So they're not time stamped. When you do a movie properly, or you do a podcast, right? There's one thing we talk about, when the next thing, and it's time stamped. We don't ever relive the experience because we don't want to re-traumatize the person. That's the worst thing we could do. But we want to release the emotion that's holding this picture. And once we release the emotion by feeling the energy that didn't get processed, the chemistry that didn't get processed, then now the memory can be stored low definition, and it goes, I believe it goes to the neocortex. So it's going to get filed like a low definition. Maybe not right away, but eventually it will. So, like if I asked you, what did you eat 10 days ago? You really have to really start digging to remember, because that's a
Yeah.
memory that got time stamped properly, of low importance and low definition.
Okay, so that's how. So then you're dealing with all these traumas and things that were not dealt with properly. So what are you doing in EFT? I mean, it's tapping or something, and as you're tapping, are you talking about it? How does that whole
Okay,
process work?
so we create some sentences. So, as I said before, we're both a personality, human, and spirit, right? So that needs to be expressed as well. So we say the sentences, even though it's 4 o'clock in the morning and this darn cat woke me up and I thought it was a burglar. I'm angry and I'm open to feeling this anger and let it flow. So we basically, and the formula, I'll give it to here so they can all do it. It's simple. It's the emotion. I didn't put the body part. Where am I feeling it?
Right.
So let's say the anger is in my gut. And what is the event? Always in the present moment. Why in the present moment? Because creation takes place only in the now.
Right.
So even if you're going to the doctor tomorrow, today thinking about the doctor's appointment that I'm terrified, I have all this fear in my gut thinking about tomorrow, right? And then we put something positive at the end. And if you noticed, I started with even though. Why did I start with even though? Because you know better than me, words have creative power, right?
Yeah.
So we want to say even though, so it doesn't stick in our reality, right? We're just using all these sentences to release and make ourselves comfortable what we're feeling, because who's experiencing it? The personality is.
Right.
It's not the divine person, right? The divine person is the observer, right? So all three of us, the experiencer, the witness, and the observer have to be resolved here. So we usually work with the experiencer.
Okay. So it's basically a combination of, what are you feeling? Where are you feeling it? You're saying it in the now, and
And
then
the event that
oh, in the
caused
event.
the event in the now, and then we put something positive at the end, and then we continue with the body parts. So there's the top of the head, there's the side of the eyes, under the eyes. If I remember well, this is the stomach. This here under the breast is the liver, so it's very good for anger, right? Because each organ, we know from Chinese medicine, holds an emotion. So anger is usually stored in the liver.
Ever.
Fear is stored in the kidneys, right? Heartache is stored in the heart, but powerlessness and grief sometimes can be stored in the lungs.
Oh,
Fear of
interesting.
dying, people who have pneumonia have a lot of fear, feeling powerless, which is why they have difficulty breathing. It's stored in the lungs.
Interesting. Okay. So, and this sounds like it's connecting to all of the different, what is it, the meridian points within your body, and
Absolutely.
all of your nerves, and then ultimately it's connecting, and sounds very similar to acupressure, where you're really trying to connect those meridian
It's
points all throughout your
exactly
body.
what we're doing. We're just addressing the personality here as well, because I, as Sophia, have an experience and I'm angry at that cat. So, yeah, I want to move the energy, but I'm still angry at that.
Right.
So, I need to move that energy. So, I address the personality, and then eventually the energy flows, and then my anger dissipates. Because why? Emotions is what holds the belief, or all the thought patterns. The thought patterns started the issue, but then they get hold in the emotions. And when we release emotions, we get rid of a lot of beliefs, and it's harder to do it
Interesting.
the other way around. If you went one belief after one belief, you would take a lifetime. But if
Hmm.
you release big chunks of fear, you're going to get a lot of fearful thought patterns leave. A perfect example that you can find on the internet, very common on a lot of training programs, when EFT practitioners do full day tapping. So we're tapping all day, and we may be working on, some finance. And then at the end of the day, the person realized, you know what? I am not afraid of snakes. So in my case, I've been working on a client, but I was never working on her fear of dogs. She hated dogs because she got bitten as a child, never even
Uh,
brought the subject of a dog, but she had a lot of fears from childhood, other stuff, certain things that happened, but no animals involved. All of a sudden, she no longer, her daughter got a puppy, and she loves the puppy. And now she lets the cat in the house. And the strangest part, I was expecting, she was overweight. So, anger, or when you activate your sympathetic nervous system, women who want to lose weight are going to have a hard time losing weight. That's why you hear women, I'm dieting, I'm not losing an ounce. But we had a lot of trauma we were working for. We only had one talk about weight, and she ended up, as a byproduct, after a whole year working together, losing 30 pounds,
wow. And all
because
that was just basically,
parasympathetic system
yeah, that
activated.
was all stored in the emotion.
That's correct.
I guess that's why it's called, what is it, emotional eating or something?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, there you go. That's one of the issues. So you you've gotten so connected to, the EFT practice, different realities. What was it that kind of got you to uncover EFT, discover EFT? What was your journey like? Where would,
Okay.
what were you experiencing, and what was it that said, this is where I got to go?
I was a pretty much a go-getter, but in general, I wasn't a happy person. Let's start with that. So I had a lot of challenges in my life. I wasn't happy. And then some good things happened. And then I lost this good thing that happened to me. And then finally, I literally got so depressed and I wanted out of this world. I just wanted out. And while I was working, and it didn't matter if I got one degree and then I got a second training, because I'm also a network engineer, and then I got another degree, all these degrees were not making me happy. And I wanted out. I kept on saying, I can't feel what it is that I'm feeling. I just want to out. And I got the experience being expected to die. So I ended up having a surgery that I didn't need, that made my body shut down. What I don't know, and I haven't fully unraveled, is which part of me made the decision to, I mean, I know which part of me, but I don't have memories how that took place. So I was expected, they had told me it's a matter of days, but 23 days, I'm an inpatient in the hospital and all my organs are almost shut down. I'm still alive. So now I come out after 23 days and I'm debilitated and I didn't die. So now I have a problem. My problem is, how I'm going to live. I was fine if I was out, but I didn't die. And now I'm stuck with the ailment plus my anger, my depression. And for years, I was looking. There was one thing, though, that I kept on saying. I was very healthy. I may have been depressed and unhappy, but I was super healthy. When I mean super healthy, my health and my stamina was perfect. And I could not understand how all of my organs can shut down overnight. So I kept on saying there has to be something wrong in this picture. So I refused removing my organs. I ended up going to Minnesota at the Mayo to get some treatment. It was much better than what I would have gotten here. It was very conservative, but the symptoms would flare up. So 16 years later, I'm kind of fed up, and now I'm coming back that the body can't take anymore. So I'm pretty much facing the same choice I had before, going back on the slow deterioration and being debilitated. And I gave it some thought, and a friend of mine, or my partner at the time, said, "Did you ever consider how I would feel if you were gone?" And I had never considered his point of view. I was so caught up in my own personality, and that literally moved me. I mean, he said it in a loving way, meaning he would be devastated. And then I said, okay, I have to do something about it. And I had looked at EFT and I dismissed it. I had looked at it years before and I had read Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings, and I said, he doesn't know what he's talking about, because I have a master's in epidemiology. I mean, how the hell does he know what he's talking? Disease is disease. But I was desperate. So I read all his books. I went to his first event and my heart was very closed, but I had an experience. And that was enough for me to know that my thinking was wrong. And I read his books 5 times each, but I could not open up my heart. No matter what I did, I could not open up my heart. And I said, okay, I think there's something with my emotions, because I couldn't tell what emotions are at the time. I was clueless. I was so disconnected from my body because I was in so much pain and a lot of times bedridden. So I got this lovely EFT lady, and she says, "You are full of anger." I said, "Me?" Says, "Yeah," but I was disconnected from my anger, and it didn't take a week. My emotions, my aggression came up, my anxiety came up, and then I would have, every time an emotion, an intense emotion, or a story that I had distorted, because sometimes we distort stories, or I had, let's say, a different take, meaning is a better way. It's not I distorted the event, it's the meaning to the story. And when I would get what we call in EFT a cognitive shift, this blur of happiness would come in. And the same thing had happened at the last day of the Dr. Joe Dispenza event. This joy hit me. And I had never felt this extreme joy. And then I said, okay, there's something to this. And then she asked me, well, maybe you need to go back to work. And she says, why don't you go back to healthcare? I said, no. And she says, well, you need to have an income. I said, I'm not going back to healthcare. I just can't. And so she says, why don't you just take the class to see if you like it? I took the class, I took the test, and I wasn't going to do that. But a client out of nowhere appeared. And then when I saw the client changing, and in the process I was healing, then I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And the person actually had an awakening during our sessions. She
Really?
even started having visions, and I did not see that coming at all. I thought we were just going to address this situation, and she has had an awakening. And that was, then I realized, okay, there's something to this more than I could put my fingers. And that's how I ended up. And I stopped all my meds, which I was on a few of them, and I've never gone back on meds. I can sleep through the night. I had anxiety. I had tons of anger. Not that I'm perfect, but this, and I can handle my outer world much easier, where I was always terrified, what's next, or what worse is going to happen to my health, because it wasn't just one ailment. I ended up having surgeries. There was one ailment after the other that was happening to me at the time.
Yeah. So with this woman who had a spiritual awakening during her EFT session, do you find that there is a spiritual component that goes to this practice? How do you connect spirituality and EFT and what's happening?
So I don't do traditional EFT. So you come to me for EFT, but I will, if the person is open, I will give them some information to read. I personally have some affinity towards Neville Goddard. He has a couple of lectures, Everybody is Yourself Pushed Out. Or if there's an illness between a parent and the child is below 7, then we look at the parent versus the child only. And I think there's something in Neville Goddard's teachings in his original voice that have a vibration. And then when we release some emotions, the person is more open to receive. And I think, and of course, I'll give them something from Dr. Joe Dispenza, because I teach that as well. I explain the conscious and subconscious mind. So I don't just do plain tapping. If they come with health ailments, I do not ascribe purely to the medical model. There's a model that has evolved. It used to be called German New Medicine, which still exists. And there's a version of it called metaconsciousness, that all disease is a lowering of frequency, and there's a biological cause for each condition. And if I'll give you an example, Hashimoto's. Someone who has Hashimoto's, very likely while they were growing up, they weren't allowed to speak or they weren't heard. Therefore, they're going to have problems in their thyroid. So metaconsciousness is very good tracking which part of the brain it is, and also asking certain questions to the clients, because we know what the theme is, and going back to them to address and release the memory. Someone who has challenges eliminating urinating specifically, not being able to empty their bladder, is they had experiences that they couldn't mark their territory as a child. A person who wets their bed, they're 17 years old, it's usually a conflict with a male figure, it's absent.
Wow.
So it's a whole program. I've done the foundation, but I grasp a lot more. I haven't gotten to the part that you know which part of the brain it is, because it goes to different, could be the stem, it could be the cerebellum, and it all lines up. And then that gives you a better avenue for healing. And that's what I used for my own healing. I did not look at the labels, what it was saying, because I held certain fears, and that's how I went back to try to undig those memories.
Interesting. So within your practice and within, everything that you were just talking about, you've mentioned elsewhere, reality hacking. What is reality hacking? How does that get included with everything that you do? And how can, people work with reality hacking?
Okay. So the mainstream name is matrix reimprinting, but I got trained from someone else who does more advanced work. So he relabeled it. So, because a lot of people may know it as matrix reimprinting. So once we heal the younger version of ourselves, right? So there's an aspect of us that's frozen in time, right? A traumatic memory. And I'm going to make a reference to the Bible. I think his name was Sal's wife. She turned back and she became a pillar of stone.
Oh,
So she
okay.
looked
Right.
at the past and she got frozen in time. Okay. So once we go back to thaw that event, and how do we thaw that event, that traumatic experience? By feeling the emotion and letting it go. Once we release all the emotions from the traumatic experience and it's neutral, we ask the holographic version of ourselves. Some people call it an echo, some people like to call it the younger self, right? It's a holographic imprint. So we ask, let's say, younger Sophia, now that this event has no charge anymore, what would I've liked to have happened? So now I re-imprint it with a new emotion, a high vibration emotion, and a new belief. So the original event is I'm not good enough and I don't feel loved, right? So I cleared that, and now I'm going to re-imprint an image who the parent maybe is holding me and taking care of me, and I feel loved and safe. And we keep on re-imprinting that. We do it once in the session and the person practices it at their home. It just takes 3 minutes. And eventually that shifts you to a parallel timeline. Why? Because memories are held between two neurons. If we start pruning the old story that I'm not loved and my parents didn't care for me or whatever it is, because now it doesn't have an emotional charge, right? And I keep on re-imprinting and remembering how the person hugged me and my mother hugged me and whatever, and I'm all loved and parallel loved. There's another reality that does exist, and now I'm moving to a parallel timeline. So that's hacking reality.
Ah. So that sounds very much like affirmations and visualizations is basically what you're doing, and you're visualizing exactly what it is that you want. You continue to affirm it, and you're then creating it in your mind, and your reality starts to change as you're seeing that thing in your new reality, and your thoughts are creating the thing that you want. It's kind of like what Buddha said: all that we are is a result of what we
Exactly.
have thought.
Exactly what we're doing. The only added thing we do is we re-imprint all the characters that took place, so they remember us. So I do ascribe in the multiverse. So there are multiple realities. I don't ascribe that for every little thing. There's a universe, but for major events, there's another version of us that did something else. And if you have a desire to be better than what you are, it could be that future or alternate version that's actually calling you, right? So when we release the emotional charge and the stories that kept us stuck, now we can visualize better, re-imprint it, and update all our characters in our video game, if you want to call it that way.
Absolutely. All of our avatars can be rechanged, can be, recolored if we want. We can redraw our avatar.
And I can tell you from experience that certain of my traumatic memories, it took a while. They're actually starting to fade away. And I didn't believe that was going to happen. When I was in this process, I found someone on YouTube who was doing some reviews of Itzhak Bentov's book. It's called Swinging the Pendulum, basically talking about what the reality is. I had a chat with him. I just reached out to him out of nowhere. I said, would you like to chat? I'll reimburse you for the time. And he was the first one who gave me the idea. He had a horrible upbringing, and he says he doesn't recall. He was in a complete happy state, and he doesn't remember much from his past. And I at first I had a hard time believing that is true. But once I was working on myself, those memories, the ones that don't have an emotional charge, seem to be fading away. And even if they're there, they're not important anymore. So,
Wow.
so what if the person did it? It's over. It's done with.
Because that also sounds like a little bit of what you were talking about with Dr. O.G. Dispenza, where, he also, because he had, what was it, broken vertebrae or something,
Mhm.
and he
Oh,
thought
fine.
to him, yeah, spine, yeah, he broke his spine, and he said, I'm going to fix my spine, I'm going to fix my vertebrae, and lo and behold, he did. He got into a terrible accident, spine's broken. It's like, I'm going to fix it. Is that kind of the same kind of thing where he's just basically having the visualization, having the affirmation, and lo and behold, the body and the mind kind of followed his thought?
That is correct. So there's a few principles that go for healing. One thing that has gotten a grip on us is the label we get. So he happened to be a doctor and he had done a lot of work on himself, so he didn't get stuck on the label, right? So when they give you a terminal illness, whether that's cancer or whatever, and medicine tells you you have no hope, which is what they told me, you need to release the fear or that whole label, right? So we have to shift the belief that it is, maybe you can't believe fully that the body can heal, but maybe this much it can heal a little bit, right? So that's the first thing we do, and release all the emotions and all the panic and anxiety that goes with it. Then afterwards, that's exactly what he did. And if you hear his story, he says it took him 6 weeks to overcome himself, because all the panic that he's going to be in a wheelchair, that he's going to have to close the practice, that he will never heal, was running through his head. So he could not do his visualizations and he could not feel that he was whole. After the 6 weeks, somehow he overcame himself and he said one toe moved, just one. It wasn't the whole body, one toe. And then he says, okay, I'm on the right. He just got a little breadcrumb. And then afterwards, the last 6 weeks is when his healing took place, because he stayed stuck on the belief, okay, if one toe moved that was completely paralyzed, another toe can come online, then the third, then the foot, then the hand, and whatever.
Wow. Yeah, his story is so amazing, and there are so many others just like that, and it's showing the power of our one. I don't want to call it mind, but our ability to heal ourselves, because it's energy, and we're allowing our energy to heal everything that's around us.
Absolutely. So the body follows the mind. And what we're truly doing is we're healing the mind. The body, under the right conditions, meaning the right brain waves and emotional state, will automatically heal. I know we chatted before podcast, but Dr. David Hawkins has a wonderful book, Letting Go the Pathway to Surrender. And he basically says if you can be in the vibration of 540, which is above unconditional love, it's joy, there's instantaneous healing to the body. That's how those miracles happen. It's automatic. He also makes a reference, anything below 200, so 200 is courage, is life depleting, meaning it's going to tax your life. And anything above 200 at least doesn't take from your health. So anger, if I remember well, shame is 20, fear might be 75. They're a logarithmic scale. They are depleting your energy source.
Yeah, and this is all on the vibration state, the vibratory state, which is something I've always been telling people, is that you've got to raise your vibration, because it's that your vibration creates the you, the you that you want, and you're able to do that. And people say, well, how do I do that? Well, whether you're just meditating for a couple of minutes a day, or whether you're doing the affirmations even, or just allowing yourself to get out of where you were and just kind of doing what Dr. Joe was doing. You're like, I can just wiggle
Absolutely.
this toe, you know? Hey, I can wiggle the toe, like go on to the next toe. It doesn't
I,
take
I mean,
big steps.
That is, I mean, the average person only sees one tone, would pack, it's just one tone and go immediately that the glass is half full. But he had enough training and knowledge, and his principle is the energy that created me, or whoever that created me, the source that created me, must know how to put me back together. And that was his principle that he started with.
Yeah. And I just got to tap into it.
Yep. And that's where it is. And I think the average of us, including myself, the hardest one for me was to feel my emotions. I could not get a grip, even though I can be disciplined at times, I could not get grip of my thoughts. So the panic and the fear in the beginning was there till I actually started feeling it. And what I know now, there's me, there's my consciousness, and then there's the body that is the subconscious mind, and it's my body with all of its fears that's holding me back. Because I may say I want to be healthy, which is a 5 to 10% depending on how the person is, yet without knowing, I have this tightness, this gut feeling, and says, no, you can't do it. No, you can't do it. But I'm not fully aware of it because I'm disconnected from the body, and I end up doing nothing, right? And when we align with the body, because I think your audience is very evolved, we are an awakening path, right? So in the old days, in order to go to the higher dimensions, we had to die. In this lifetime, we do not have to die. We have to transmute this. So our car or our vehicle is the body, and its language is emotions. So in order to move to our ascension and our higher vibrations, we have to learn how to feel it, transmute these emotions, and let them go. And that's what's going to move us to change the carbon to a crystalline form.
Yeah. And it's so well said, because it's so easy for us to, especially guys, not to express our emotions. We're taught to, all right, you're not allowed to cry, you're not allowed to have this. You may have these emotions. We'll just stuff them down there and buck up. But as you begin to allow your vibration to rise and you allow yourself to become more sensitive to the energies that are around you, you're not only feeling the old emotions that were there and they start to rise to the surface, and the whole idea is to clear them, but then you start becoming more sensitive to the other emotions that are around you. And it's like the spigots just open up. I mean, I'll be sitting in a movie, I'll be like, ah! And my wife looks at me and goes, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm great."
It's a release. We were meant to feel them, like the animal, when there's danger afterwards, it shakes its body, right? So
Exactly.
we were meant, and we were cut off from it. And emotions, not feelings, emotions, when we feel them, only last 90 seconds. Feelings could last a lifetime.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And we get those words confused. We get them all mixed up.
Yeah.
It's like we think feelings are the feelings of, okay, how sensitive are we, or the feelings of what's going on, when in fact it's almost the opposite. It's like we want to be thinking, okay, what are we sensitive to? Those emotions, let those emotions and clear them.
Yeah, just the flow. I mean, even for me, it's a process, and I know there's other modalities other than EFT, because I don't want to just put EFT. I think EFT is one of the fastest one and has been tested a lot. But there's breath work.
Oh yeah.
So breath work, when I refer breath work, not just the simple breathing, the ones that we do for 40, there's the one that Stan Groff did, it's called holotropic breath work. Even the Wim Hof works, and transformational breath work from Judy Kravitz. So these are continuous breaths that take either 30 or 40 minutes. It has to be longer than 20 minutes, and you can't stop. And you breathe into the belly continuously. And why the belly? Because your first 3 energy centers are in the lower part of the body, and each of those energy centers holds an emotion, right? Above the heart, usually the emotions are lighter, the energy center of the
Right.
heart. So shame would be your second energy center, your second chakra, right? fear, anger is in the third. And if we do that, energy starts moving. Breath work, I found for me, takes a little longer, but it's a great combination to add it with your meditation and your other modalities. Because if you sat down to do a breath work, there's not a tiger out there chasing you, right?
Right.
And
Can't
the same
be.
thing with the tapping. When you're physically tapping, they can't be your mind, because it's so angry, could imagine a tiger. But when we're tapping, so those modalities are excellent. There's also the Peter Levine method, which is the somatic approach. You just put your awareness on it, which is a great. Peter Levine is a great doctor, and he has people who've healed. It's just that I think those are a little bit more challenging when you've disconnected. So it requires a little bit more effort in the beginning. Where tapping, it's easy for you to come to me and complain, I can't believe that driver cut me off. I swear to God, right? But we're adding something with it to calm you down. So as a tendency, the avatar likes to talk about itself.
Right.
So that's why tapping is very easy. Where in the somatic experience, the avatar has to take the back seat.
Yeah. It's the ego mind. Ego mind loves
That's
talking about
exactly.
itself,
That's
and it's
exactly.
like, so it's me, because that's the job it's designed for. It's designed to protect us. It's designed to put up the barriers between us and the rest of the world, to quote unquote protect us when we were young, and it just never lets go. So if you are able to release your ego focused mind, and that avatar, just let things, relax for a while and let them chill out. Yeah, that's so well put. Now, what happens if somebody's got, I don't know, if it's a chronic illness, or they've got, like, some kind of trauma? Can they still, work with all these different practices, and how does that work? And
I
because there's some,
combine a few and sometimes intuition. So I want to bring an interesting story, because for me it was an eye opener. There was this lady, lovely lady, that I met her in an EFT class, and she had done a lot of work on her. And she had Tourette's. And I'm sure, I don't know if your audience knows, it's uncontrollable movements. So they'll shake like this and can't stop it. And sometimes when the anger comes up, they'll start cussing. For some reason, she came to me. I said, I think we can look at it. I didn't know it was going to be healed, but I do believe in the model, all diseases are lowering of frequency. So, I take a history like everybody else. And when did it start? And she said at 3. I said, no, I don't think it started at 3. So I did hacking reality, and I re-imprinted her birth. So we first cleared some current emotions, and we went before she was born, if she wanted to come in and all the stuff. And then we reached the first trimester. I think it was the first trimester. I can't remember if it was the first or second. She starts shaking uncontrollably. She starts being angry. So I said, what is the fetus is seeing? What is it's feeling? So all she sent, and she didn't know that, it just came to her while her mother was pregnant. So we're imagining in the matrix, right? She's in the womb. The mother, her head was being slammed on the side of the crib. So every time the father was slamming the mother like this, the mother had a jolt in the belly, which explained her huge anger towards her dad, because the mother was angry. She was beaten up while she's being pregnant. I mean, a horrible story. But the interesting thing is, after she released that emotion, the symptoms almost went away completely.
wow, that's amazing. And it all goes back to the avatar, and releasing what the avatar is, what emotions it's having.
Yeah, it experienced this avatar wasn't feeling safe, knows somehow because what is anger? Anger is you're trying to protect your space, really. Below it is fear, right? What does a scared animal do? They put their claws and their teeth out because they're afraid, not because they're angry. They think you're going to violate them, right?
Yeah.
So anger is basically someone has invaded our territory, right? So this child or this baby knew someone I need to be safe around this person. So she was always angry towards her dad.
Wow. And that just
And
kept on going for years, and that was one of the
yeah,
reasons why she had all these symptoms.
yeah. And the mother was constantly shook. So those vibrations went to the child, which now explains also the cursing, right? And the cussing, the excessive anger, right?
Wow.
I mean, it was a horrible thing for the mom. I think miracles happen if I had worked with the mom, and then the whole dynamic falls apart, right? But, I didn't know the mom, and this person only wanted to deal with this. And it, for your audience, it didn't take more than 6 sessions. That's all it was.
Really?
That's all it was. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so she was able to really kind of deal with it and go through with it pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, at least for the symptoms of the physical symptoms.
Hmm.
What she did afterwards, I don't know. That depends on the person. While EFT is great, we have to have the desire to look at ourselves. And if you do have the time, I want to share one personal story, which
Yeah.
I'm a little embarrassed, but I'll share it. So I had a conflict for most of my life with my sister. We didn't talk for 35 years. And I tried all the forgiveness in the world, and it didn't work. So no matter what I did, it just wouldn't work. And I had a scene where I was 2 years old, and my sister's taking care of me, washing me in a little bassinet. Something frightened me, and there was a piece of furniture, and I got cut here and cut there. And first, of course, the story is that she was evil. I mean, that's the beliefs I had. But I had worked on the memory, and I had worked on it 6 times. Yet there was no interaction between the two of us.
Hmm.
And I'm working on a different topic, and this memory shows up, and I'm working with a practitioner, and the practitioner says, "Is there a charge?" And I said, "No, usually that's what we ask, an emotional charge." I said, "But you know what? I've worked on this so many times. If it's showing up, let me work on it again." So he said something wise. Why don't we work on the physical pain? This 2-year-old is waiting for her dad, because I ended up getting stitches, but my father wasn't there. So I'm screaming. I'm 2 years old and waiting for my dad to come. And I'm in pain. I'm a little 2-year-old. And after the pain cleared, a voice comes in my head, and it said, "Do you know how a little baby puts its finger in a socket and you associate it with pain?" Says, "You associated your sister with physical and emotional pain." And that's when I saw I had created unconsciously, not in a prior lifetime, unconsciously, this experience. Once I had that realization, and some series of events happened, and I'm on communication with her.
Wow. That's amazing. And that's all just going back and realizing what's happened. And
Yeah,
it's like you're literally going back to that time frame, and it kind of gets reenacted,
yeah,
and
it was.
you're able to deal with it.
Yeah, and I think what people need to know is we don't create all our experiences consciously. I didn't come like a 2-year-old and say, "Here, you know what? I'm going to have this evil situation with my sister, or this horrible life." This was a clear unconscious behavior. The same thing with my hospital experience. I did not know my words were manifesting, right? All I kept on saying, "This is too much for me to take. I want out." And I said that for over a year and a half to 2. So the universe gave me okay, you want out? Here it is.
Here's your option. Take it or leave it. Wow. That's strong. That's amazing. What about, people who are looking to transform somehow, but they don't know how to start, they don't know where to begin, they don't know where to look. What would you say to those people who do have those problems? What kind of either insight or piece of advice do you think you might give them?
Okay, I first suggest to the person to give it a try, but don't give a try like one session. Give a try a few and just have an openness, right? So before going to EFT, I've tried many modalities, and I would do 30 sessions of each, and nothing was working, right? Including hypnosis. But now, if I go back to hypnosis, it's going to work for me now. The reason it wouldn't work for me, I want to address, because I don't want to put a hypnotist down. I was in such a fear flight mode that I couldn't lower my brain waves, the person, to relax me, to hypnotize me.
Yeah.
So I could not get past my analytical mind. Now I can do it. And meditation was a challenge for me. And that's where EFT helped me. I could not keep still. And Dr. Joe's meditations, the old ones, were an hour and 15 minutes. I could not get past 10 minutes.
Wow.
Which I was constantly in my head. I mean, I would stay for the whole thing, but I was just analyzing the whole world, whoever you can think of. So I think any modality, whether it's EFT or other modality that addresses the body to release emotions, would be a great start, and give it 10 sessions with an open mind. Don't try to figure out why it works. Just go with the flow and be honest. So I have a lot of clients who are concerned if they're going to cry. Well, it's between the two of us. It's confidential. No one knows. I mean, I feel sad that you're crying, but I also know it's very cathartic for you to cry. So holding your emotions during the private session is not worth. You want to curse during a private session? You want to, in your mind, murder the person in the private session? No problem, as long as you don't do it in real life. Okay.
You don't want that.
Right. So give it a try. And then once there's a little bit of release of emotion, meditation's going to work, affirmations are going to work, hypnosis is going to work, and yoga is going to work, qigong is going to work. All of them are going to work because you release that real thing that kept you separate, because we're not feeling safe. When we have a lot of anger, it's not a matter if there's a real danger. Your sympathetic nervous system has been activated and you're always on high alert, which is why the new kids can't sit still. They're glued on their phone. There's this, and they're always surveilling. They can't sit still.
Yeah.
Or they talk too much. They can't stop talking because the body has been programmed to not feel safe.
Yeah.
So any somatic modality would do wonders.
Focus on releasing the emotion, whatever it takes, and just being honest with whatever it is that's coming up and allowing it to manifest and then release it.
And forgive yourself for the experience. I think the hardest part is forgiving ourselves, not the other person.
Yep.
It's literally forgiving ourselves. And in between sometimes comes guilt. And this one was a hard one because guilt and grief are the two hardest that I've experienced. Guilt is a useless emotion.
Yeah.
But it takes such a big grip on you. I mean, what is to be guilty of? I mean, this is just an experience, but it's very hard for the brain to wrap. Now, grief is a challenge of its own because we're not just grieving the loss of the person, we're grieving the what is and how we're going to move forward. So a lot of times we get stuck. Okay, I'm willing to let the grief go for the person, but now I'm afraid how I'm going to move forward.
Right.
And all the years that I wasted in or what I should have had or I thought I was going to have. So that emotion is a little bit more complicated, but all the other ones, anger, you can release very fast with EFT, super fast. Fear gets released pretty fast. And some of the other ones, can eventually go. I think those are the challenging ones.
Yeah.
And then forgiveness, that could be challenging. So we always hold something because we believe, if I forgive him, he's going to do it again.
Or it's been so bad. How could I possibly forgive that person? That's so and so. Well, that's great. I mean, any other last words you think that might help a listener today?
Okay, well, if they're drawn to me or to this kind of work, because I do come from the medical model, so I know how stuck we can get. I do offer, I'm stubborn, so I already know. You can come to my website. I offer a 30-minute complimentary session that we can discuss options. I also offer a free masterclass to discuss what Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches. And if I am not the right fit, I can guide them to something else. And I also write a blog on time. My big passion is timelines. And what I do want to address and maybe can give some hope on the individual. So when the person heals, they're not healing this, meaning this Sophia. The Sophia that was ill, that was so angry, somewhere still exists. What happened is my consciousness moved to a parallel version of Sophia that didn't have as many limiting beliefs. Because a lot of people say, well, I have all of these blood results. I have all of this. How I'm going to turn this around? You're not turning this around. You're changing your TV channel, finding another version of you in the multiverse that's a little bit better in the beginning, and then a little bit better and a little bit better. And then eventually you get, depending on how much effort you want to put, you found the version that is whole.
Yeah. And things are created with our thoughts, because thoughts create things. And it's all about what are we thinking? What are we feeling? How are we, creating? We create our own reality.
That's correct.
Well, great. Well, this was wonderful, Sophia. Thank you so much for coming on the episode today and coming on the show and, teaching us all so much about not only just EFT, but also how we can all heal ourselves. And there's so many different ways that we can do that. And it's so eye-opening. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to have you on your show. And I want to thank the audience and remind them, no matter how bad their situation is, it doesn't matter. You might be expected to die tomorrow. You can turn this around. I think that's important for them to know, because we lose hope. And unfortunately, the default network in the brain is to be negative, and it's not the person's fault. I think I want to stress that. We were programmed, and that's how we came from the factory.
We got to go find that switch that deprograms that.
Well, thank you very much. It was an honor being on your show. Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode today. This was such a joy talking about this, and I hope you got as much out of it as I did, because this is more that we keep on learning. And, if you like what you're hearing, definitely, give us a like, give us a thumbs up. That way it's always coming into your feed. You'll never miss an episode. And don't forget to take a look at the show notes, where everything that Sophia was talking about. We'll see everything in there, her links and all of her blogs and everything that you want to know about Sophia. They'll be in the show notes. So with that, I will see you next week. And this is Chris signing off, sending you love and light. And I will see you next time. Bye for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Spirits Beside Us. Make sure you head over to the show notes for all the links and information on this week's episode. You can check it out at spiritsbesideus.com. If you love this episode as much as I did, head over to rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're looking for a community of spiritual seekers like yourself, make sure you join my Facebook page, Spirits Beside Us Podcast, on Facebook. This is Chris signing off, sending you love and light. I can't wait to connect with you again on Wednesday.